Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I am coming back at you with another Wargaming and miniature video. In this video, we're going to continue on with my epic Waterloo update. In today's update, we're talking 15 millimeter. Okay, so Warlord Games makes a game called Black Powder. I use that for my Napoleonic gaming. Black Powder uses 40 millimeter bases with 28 millimeter figures. That's the understood standard. It can be played at any scale, and it can be played with any size bases. They just recently introduced a concept of playing Black Powder in 15 millimeter. They call it epic, but it's set up for the American Civil War. Okay, so the epic bases are 20 by 60, and if you look, these are 10 millimeter squares, so you'll see that that is 60 by 20. Okay, that's the scale of these bases here. Okay, so I'm going to break this down and just bear with me, because not only am I breaking it down for you, but I'm also kind of breaking it down for myself. This is part of my brainstorming idea phase, and you're joining me for that. Okay, so don't think of this as a review or a tutorial or anything like that. This video is me trying to figure out how I'm going to do it, and I'm just bringing you guys along for the journey. Okay, so I want to continue to play Black Powder in 28 millimeter. So I've got a ton of 28 millimeter guys that I'm painting up for like my Quatre Bras Waterloo era battles, maybe Corunna Bay or something like that. So I'm basically making a core per side pretty much with allies and stuff like that. But I want to do something like Waterloo or larger battles, maybe with multiple cores or something like that, as you already know, and that's where my epic game is coming in. Now I understand, now I don't have this in my hand, I don't have a copy of those rules in my hand, or I don't really even think they are rules. I think they're just a different group of miniatures, and you still base them and you still play with them exactly the same way that you play Black Powder. The American Civil War units are still regiments. In Napoleonic, we would just call those battalions, 300 to 600 men, something like that. Okay, so, and now they're normally 24 figures, which each one of, like, this group here is 24 figures, and this group here is 24 figures. So that is 48 models. Now I considered making one battalion 48 models to make it look more quote unquote epic. Okay, so I have a variety of different bases, and I want to kind of explain to you why I think they will work and why I don't think they will work, because this is a mixture of bases, and yeah, so now imagine this 20 by 60, right, being on the table. I don't care how many figures are on this base, it doesn't matter. I'm just talking bases. I'm just talking game space. Okay, in a Civil War scenario, how many formations are you really going to be forming? Really, there's only the line formation and march column. That's pretty much it, right? Well, you might refuse the left or something like that, but they didn't use a lot of the formations that were being used by European Napoleonic armies. It probably would be perfectly fine for an American War of Independence, or French and Indian War. I believe that I will use, I don't know yet, but I think I will go ahead and use this style for my American War of Independence. Because what kind of formations are they going to be in? They're going to be in either line or they're going to be in column. That's pretty much all they're ever going to be in. Where in Napoleonic's period, you have multiple formations that you're going to be in. You need to be able to adapt your model formations to be able to represent march column, attack column, column by companies, line, 4-rank line, mixed skirmish. Am I missing one? Oh yeah. So I don't know. It just seems like this would not be able to represent that unless I had 4 or more bases, right? That's what I'm thinking. I think because both Black Powder expects you to have 6 bases. What I've noticed on the box art is that all the regiments that are in the American Civil War are 5 bases. I got a little bit of this pewter laying around. Whoops. Because I've been trimming some models. Let me go ahead and get rid of all that. I know you guys come to the video to watch me clean up my desk. Okay. They seem to have 5. Now, 5 guys, 5 bases like this represents a march column very well, right? You got a bunch of figures. Doesn't matter how many figures are on there, but you got a bunch of figures on here in rows. That's great for a march column. But to me, and you can visualize this. Remember, these are the 15mm models that I'm using. This is way too wide. It is way too wide for a march column, in my opinion, right? How am I going to represent a line? Well, I'm going to put them all end to end, right? And if I was to put these end to end, even if I only did 4, okay, I'm not going to do the 5 like the box cover. If I only did 4, that is the exact same width as a 28mm unit. Okay, it'll have a lot more miniatures on the bases, but the size of the bases would be the exact same size, because each of these is 1.5 times the width. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bases, just like a 40mm, 28mm, 40mm base. I think that's okay. That's okay, because now I'm playing on the exact same playing field or playing area as I would with the 28mm models. It would just be the models would be closer to the ranges, right? I could use smaller buildings, smaller trees. Everything could be smaller. I'm going to half the ranges anyway. But what that means is the units are twice as wide. And I think that's unrealistic. I really do. I don't think that a battalion or a regiment in this case should be this wide at this scale. It's probably, I mean, based on these 15 millimeter miniatures, it's probably closer to a 1-to-1. So it's probably more accurate to a 1-to-1 of these 15 millimeters. But I don't have 600 guys on this unit. So even if each base was supposed to represent 100 guys, and then if I had 500 guys or if I had 600 guys, but even if that was the case, I'm not going to have 100 miniatures on one of these bases. The most I'll have is 20. So it shouldn't be 1-to-1. It should be about a 4 or 5-to-1. So if I half this, now we're starting to talk, right? So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking 30 millimeters. And that's this base here, and I'll get to that in a minute. I just think that these bases are way too big when it comes to black powder in a reduced scale. Because remember, I'm trying to put a very large battlefield on my table, and if this is exactly the same width as my 28 millimeters, I'm going to get the exact same battlefield. I can half the ranges, but the width is still the same. So I think that's out of the question. I think it's too wide. And that's just the name of that tune. If I only used 2 bases to represent a unit, then I would think that would be perfect. That would be fine. And then I could go into column, and then I could go into line. That would remind me of Field of Glory, but that's not black powder, and that's okay in the American War of Independence, because you're looking at small units anyway, or Civil War, or even medievals. Hail Caesar or something, that might actually work. But and I'm actually considering doing some Hail Caesar in 15 millimeter actually as well. But that just won't work. So mainly because the Napoleonic models units need to be able to adopt more than just these 2 formations, right? And I don't want to put 3 out there. Like some people suggest that a small unit might be 3, a normal unit might be 4, and a large unit might be 5 or 6. And I'm thinking that's fine. I'm okay with that, but still 3 models isn't going to get me into the right type. Okay, this right here, what is that? That's a 4-figure line, I guess. That'd be fine. And if I go to like march column, or do I just call this an attack column? And if I want to actually say it's a march column, which you'll never see on the battlefield anyway. I mean, march columns are supposed to be to get you to the battlefield, but you might. I mean, we do it sometimes. What would I need to do? Put a token down and say that this is actually a march column and not an attack column? I don't like doing that. That just doesn't feel right to me. So for Napoleonics, I'm going to abandon the concept of the 60 millimeter bases. I'm not doing it. Not for Napoleonics. Okay, so let's just set that off to the side and say those are done. Okay, now these guys here are some Hanover guys, and these are some Brunswickers. I just got them to kind of get an idea of how they would fit on these bases, and if I like them or not, and if I want to expand or not. Okay, so now let's go to Well, let's just play, because remember the width and all that. Let's just play a game where if I'm halving the ranges, which I am, why don't I just half the base sizes? Okay. Well, this doesn't actually half the base sizes because it's 1/4 the size, but it's half the depth and it's half the width. So this is 20 by 20. A unit in black powder are 6 bases, right? Perfectly fine. And every formation I need to form, like if I need to form the attack column, there you go. If I need to form the 4-figure firing line, there you go. If I need to dispatch some skirmishers, I can always take a couple of these guys out here and say that's a mixed formation, you know, or I could even do something like this and say the skirmishers are deployed out front. Actually, the frontage is supposed to be the same, so there's my skirmishers out there. What's some other formations? The march column, the one I was grieving over about and then I've got my march column. Okay, and if I half the ranges and half the movement, this is perfect. This is 100% perfect. But the problem with it is, and I've kind of looked at this a little bit, when I start putting my figures on a 20mm base, right, it doesn't look perfect. What it looks is tiny, right? So I just knocked this guy over. Okay, because I'm not using any like tacky or anything to hold these down. I'm just putting these models down. What you'll notice is it looks like the black powder figure bases just super small. And so, you know what that doesn't do? It doesn't scream epic, right? It doesn't scream like it's an epic amount of figures on the table. It looks like it would be an exact same number of figures, just smaller, right? So I'm looking at something like that. It looks like black powder, and it just looks smaller in 15mm and not your 40mm. Okay, so that's not going to work. I mean, it could work. I'm still thinking. This is part of the process. This video might go on a few minutes because I'm taking my time to try to figure this out. Okay, so that would be infantry, right? And you got to think about cavalry as well. Well, cavalry is on a 50 by 50, right? So I grabbed some of these 1-inch tiles from my D&D set, but that would be 25 by 25. This would be exactly a cavalry base if this was an infantry base. Okay, it's a little bit bigger, a little bit, you know, put 2 horses on the side, you know, you got your 4 figures, you got your 2 horses. The way Napoleon's battles used to do it is you would have a 25mm by 50mm base, and you would put 4 horses on it, right? Because it would basically be 2 bases forward and backwards. But that's great for Napoleon's battles. But in black powder, Napoleonic cavalry have 3 formations that they can be in. They can be in line, which is everybody side by side, right? Or they can be in 2-horse line, right? Like that, just like a 4-horse or 4-man line with the British. Or they can be in march column, right? Okay, so that's all they can be in. So this would work if I was doing this style. This would actually work very well for those horses. Okay. But again, it's going to have the same effect that these have. I don't have any cab to put on the, I don't have any 15 millimeter cab to put on these bases to kind of give you an idea of how pathetic it's going to look. So, I mean, not pathetic. It's basically just going to look exactly like bolt action. It's going to look exactly like black powder, just smaller. And that's not what we want, right? We want the game, when you take a look at the table, to say, damn. That's what you want, right? You don't want someone to walk up and say, oh, we're playing black powder with 15 millimeters. Okay, da-da-da. That's not what you want. So I don't think we're going to do that. All right. Now, this is 60. We could go with 40, right? Which is 20, 40, 60, right? We could do 40. And this is a serious, this one is a very serious consideration. It's the same width as a 40 millimeter, 28 millimeter base, but it's half the depth. Okay, so your attack columns for your French would be much shorter, right? Would be much shorter. Same exact width as an attack column in the, I'm going to call it the normal game. Okay, well, that's a serious consideration, because I can do all my formations. I can do the British two-figure line, right? Two depth line. I could do a full line, and then I could do march column. I can do attack column. I can do skirmishers. A couple of these I could just put, I could split these and put them on magnets or whatever, like I do on my 28s, or split them up into these, and then have just a couple of skirmishers out. I could even make separate skirmisher bases, because 15s are super cheap. I could put just two figures on each of these and just put them out as skirmishers or something. It's entirely, that's entirely feasible. The only reason why I might not consider this is the width, and these would be the cavalry bases, right? They would be 1 horse depth at 25 millimeters and the same width, right? So 50 millimeters. So yeah, so these would work out great for the cav, and these would work out great for the infantry. Okay, the downside, and this is why I'm thinking about this. This is why I have these out here, because I think I'm going to go with these. But it's the same width, and that's really where you've got to make up your space on the table, is with width, not so much depth. I understand that you're trying not to get across the table in record time like you do with a 28 millimeter model. You're moving 36 inches per turn and all that. With these, you're only moving 18. But the problem is, your regiments and your battalions are all still crammed left to right, shoulder to shoulder. So, and there's no way to maneuver left and right. That's with the cav and the infantry. So this is a good idea. This is a good second option. I definitely don't think that is a first option or that. I just kind of want to show you the if I had 40 millimeters. Now you can kind of look at this. I'm only putting one figure every 10 millimeters, right? So if I really wanted to cram them on there, I probably could. Even on this, I'm only putting a 6-figure front. But remember, this is one base. One base of Brunswickers. Okay, that looks like I'm starting to get there, right? I've got a lot of figures on one base that I'm moving around. You know, and then if I had multiple bases, whoa, everything's falling apart. Okay, but like if I went into any kind of depth, you would see that there's just going to be a ton of models, right? I'm looking at a ton of models. Now I'm doing the math, and I'm saying 8 figures per base, right? And if I do 6 bases like you do, then you're looking at 48 models, and that's this. That's 48 models. But I don't like the fact that the width is exactly the same as the normal game. Okay. So let's go and split the difference. And that's what I did here. If that's 20 millimeters and that's 40 millimeters, which looks good, looks too pathetic, let's go with 30 millimeters. I'm still going with the exact same depth. It's still 20 millimeter depth. And they're not squares. Well, that wasn't a square. That's not a square. So what the heck, right? This is a 30 by 20. And if I have 6 of them, that's only, what is that, 9? Oh, wait. Sorry. So it'd be 18 total length, right? Yeah, 18. Where normal 6, you're looking at you're saving, well, that's only 4 bases as well. Okay. But this equates to 60 or I'm sorry, 6 normal bases. So 40, 40, 40, 40, 40, 40, right? So 40 times 6, you're looking at 240. So instead of 240, I'm only doing 18. Or instead of 24, I'm doing 18. So I'm saving a full 60 millimeters. Okay, that's off of a normal unit. So it is going to be smaller width-wise, right? And with 6 bases like this, I can still form every formation that I need to form. I've got my Yeah, I've got my, hold on. This is 2 inches, right? Yeah, I might go with these and not these. Hey, now that I'm thinking about it, let's go with 4 of these. Yep, that's perfect. Okay. Okay, so infantry and cavalry. In my normal 28 millimeter game, I realized that if I mounted 3 figures on a base that was 1.5 times the size, that I could still form every formation that cavalry can form. They can form the line, they can form the march column, and they can form the 2-horse line, right? And it would still look good. And I just put 3 horses per base instead of 2 horses per base. Where in this case, I might put 4 horses and have a total of 16 horses on there. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Instead of, you know, your normal 12 on the normal, I would have 16. So it's more horse models. Okay, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that. And it's deep enough to handle the horse model. I was thinking about going 30 millimeters, right? Because that's 1.5 times that size, which I think is too big. Because 50 is not 1.5 times 40. So if this is exactly half, 40 bringing it down to 20, this is 50 bringing it down to 25. So 1 inch would be perfect. Okay. And I was going to say, this is going to look good. Okay. So if I have, let's put this in a French attack column. Right? Because that's your French attack column. Or any other attack column. And I was thinking I would put 3 figures on the frontage. Just like a lot of, there's a lot of black powder players out there that base their 28 millimeter models like this. I don't. I base my 28 millimeters 4 per 40 millimeters. But they base theirs exactly like this in 28s, right? I guess because they've got a big enough playing area, and that's something I don't have. Okay, so instead of 48 models like that, I would only need 36, right? 36 models. And this equates pretty good to a French battalion as well. You got your 4 Fusiliers. You have one of these is a Grenadier and one of them is a Voltigeur. Right? So, okay, you get the idea of the front rank there, no problem. But here, let me kind of stack this up a little bit. Now remember, these are 15 millimeters. Now I want to point out that I did do a little bit of measuring on either this or my ruler. These guys aren't 15ths, and I'm measuring from the bottom of the boot, which is the top of their base, the bottom of the boot, top of their base, up to the bottom of their hat, which is the brim, their forehead, right above their eye level. And it winds up being about 17 millimeters, which back in the old days, all my wargaming buddies, we would call that epic 15 millimeter. Yeah, these guys might or might not be able to stand because their bases aren't filed down perfect yet. I mean, they're kind of like almost just straight out of the bag. They're not. I put an X-Acto knife to them, but I want to get some depth. Struggling. Yeah, but you get, I hope you get the idea that there is going to be a lot of figures. And to me, I could play Black Powder with 36 figures like that. 6 bases like this. 6 figures per base, total of 36 models. I think that's what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint these up. I'm going to take 36 of them and I'm going to base them up, and you'll see a video coming real soon showing you what they would look like on these bases. So yeah, 20 by 30 is the idea that I'm going to be going with. Not the 1-for-1, not the ridiculously long bases, which the ridiculously long base does have an advantage. It has the advantage of it looks cool. There's going to be a ton of models on there, and it'll make moving units easier if you've only got 4 bases, right? But I can make movement trays or something. We'll figure it out. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming out and watching this video. And if you have any suggestions or ideas, let me know if you like what you're seeing. Now, I'm not giving up my 28mm Napoleonics. I'm just kind of experimenting with 15s right now. And I think because my American War of Independence, I've pretty much cleaned them all out. And almost all of my ancients have been converted to like an SPQR. So I've only got a like 30 or something like that Romans. So if I wanted to get some Hail Caesar Romans again, or some Greeks, or some Macedonians, or even English Knights, I think I'm going to do it in 15mm, and maybe use bases like this for my phalanxes or something. I don't know, maybe better yet, maybe these guys. I don't know. Maybe we'll do those. I'll worry about that when I get to it. But right now, I'm working on my Napoleonic figures, and I'll catch you on the next one.